Rawr, rawr, rawr.
St. Patrick's Day 2023. Now usually St. Patrick's Day in Ireland comes with either snow, frost or copious amounts of rain. And St. Patrick's Day is a bit of a marker in the motorcycle seasoning, because usually after St. Paddy's things are looking up and you'll see more bikes on the road. But today it looks wonderful. It looks beautiful. It looks like a day to go putter around on a Royal Enfield. So, the only question it leaves us is which one? Which one? Which one? Ah! Well, I guess you know it by now. I have purchased myself a 2021 Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. And this plan has been in the making for quite some time. And I had quite a few considerations to make. And the fact that Royal Enfield wasn't making it any easier for me by introducing new models every time I had made up my mind, making me kind of like go back pedal. But with a lot of thinking and a lot of pondering, I decided to return to my first choice, the Royal Enfield Interceptor 650. And why not? It is in a way a bit of an iconic bike. It kind of like marks a new era for Royal Enfield. And as I already have the Classic 500, which basically marks the end of the previous era, it kind of makes sense to have these two bikes next together. Now when I got it, it was absolutely vanilla. And just the prospect of being able to have this bike and completely customize it exactly the way I wanted was very appealing. So already we got some risers on it, and already we got ourselves an upgrade of the seat, and that's the touring seat of the Continental GT. I've got more plans for this bike. I've got more orders coming in, and we're not going to make videos of how to bolt these things on. I mean, there are thousands of videos already, which I already make very handsomely use of if there comes time for me to customize the bike to my desires. But I think the most interesting part to do today is just hop on and go for a ride and see what is all the fuss about. So, since it's not raining now, it's a good time as ever. Oh, what did I say about rain? Oh yeah. Yeah, typical for Ireland, that when you see a sunny day and it goes like, it looks to be nice, and by the time you put your gear on and got out on your bike, it starts raining. But anyway, on with the show. So I did drive the bike vanilla, but I already had like made up my mind that I would make a few alterations to this bike. First of all, I needed the risers. I kind of felt like I was leaned too far forward, and it was like kind of like bringing a pressure on my shoulders if I was riding longer than, like, say, 20 minutes. So for me, it's really important to be comfortable on the bike. I had some second thoughts about the position of the foot pegs compared to the Classic 500. You know, they're a bit more forward, and I was like kind of hemming and hawing if I would not get those extension plates that move them a bit forward, but I decided to leave it for now and to see if it would give any problems with pain in my knees or anything like that driving the bike. Now, of course, the seat, I immediately replaced that, and while I was at it, I had noted that when I picked up the bike, I had some problems starting it, and I just noticed that we needed to switch on the ignition a couple of times before we heard the whir of the fuel pump. Now, I already knew what the game was, and it's those sweet old Indian relays. Yes, we all know about how crappy those relays are, and I managed to find good replacement relays in Ireland for about €4 a piece. So, a lot cheaper than the replacement set that you can get at Hitchcock's. Slap on top of like a little bit of import tax, and yes, that can get quite costly. So I'll leave a link to those relays. They're Panasonics. They are very good. They are quite used in the US as well. And I replaced all 4 of them and gave those relay seats a good clean because yes, they had the gunk on it. So kind of cleaned it up, put the new relays in, and it immediately fixed the problem. So yeah, I was prepared. The other thing that I noted was it has an awful lot of gears, like 6 of them. And just like the Bullet 500, I kept having the feeling like there could be more gears on this. I don't know, I had to really get used to this. But I kind of like figured out how it works. Because, yes, this bike goes a bit faster, can go a bit faster. So it kind of makes sense, that extra gear, and it does mean I have to work a little bit harder through the gears if I'm in the countryside. The bike feels grown up and serious compared to the Classic 500. It has this really effortless rumble to it, and it actually drives pretty good. It also came with the original Pirelli tires, and I think the tires were recently replaced on the bike because they are in such good nick. And as you can see, I'm going out in wet weather and it's getting a lot wetter, I promise you. And I don't understand what the fuss is about the tires. I did find the rear of the bike a bit jumpy, but when I had a closer look I noticed that they were set to maximum preload. I'll just click them 2 positions back, and that seemed to kind of deal with that. Now the suspension is not super, and we all know this of the bike, but it's adequate. The same as the brakes. I find them actually a little bit better than the Classic 500. I noticed that if you squeeze on the front brake, you really feel it bite, so really happy with that. Handling itself, it does seem to have that same quality as the Classic 500, that it is super forgiving. Now, I am not like a fast driver or a sporty driver, so I guess, you know, for me it's good enough. And maybe in the future I will look into replacing the suspension, but I happened to run into somebody that also owned an Interceptor that did the replacement and says, oh, yes, it's a great upgrade, but you don't really need it. It runs fine without the upgrade, but you do notice it when you do upgrade. I found that the bike gives a very good tactile feeling of the road. You can feel the road conditions, so I'm quite happy with that. And maybe it was a good thing to get out in this rather nasty weather, because yeah, that's Ireland for you. You're going to be driving through all sorts, so might as well find out how the bike handles when things get a bit shitty. I love the rumble of the engine. I'm not too crazy about the exhausts. They just look a bit like too racy for a classic bike. So yeah, we're gonna be looking into that. And for good measures, I slapped in a DNA air filter. I mean, yeah, it is an improvement. I did try it with the original air filter, and it kind of feels like it has a little bit more pickup, and it can breathe a little bit easier. Other than that, the bike performs really, really, really well. Really pleased with it, and going on the motorway, I immediately realized that why this is going to be my favorite long distance runner, especially if motorways are involved. Now, I've often said enough that the Classic 500 can handle itself on the motorway, but I have to admit it is a bit easier on the Interceptor 650. So especially when it comes to overtaking, you're more inclined to do a safe overtake, where on the Classic 500 you would kind of like more trying to calculate more in ahead of what your best options are, and sometimes I would say like, nah, I'm just going to stay in this lane, it's not worth it. And that's the style of driving on the Classic 500 anyway. So yes, the motorways, it handles fantastic. If I have to compare it to Piggy, my old cruiser, it is way more forgiving. And I'm really, really happy with the hum of the engine. There is very little vibration. But yeah, if you compare that to the Classic 500, who does have this agricultural characteristic to it, which is actually part of the fun, it is a bike that is like a lot more stable in terms of vibrations. And I love the rumble that comes out of this twin. It is just absolutely gorgeous, and it gives you the feeling that you can drive all day. And I think the big improvement here for me personally were the risers and the upgrade of the seat, which I feel was like an absolute must to have on this bike. Another advantage of using those risers was that I could mount the TomTom center on the handlebars. There's this little lip thing under the original risers that kind of like gets in the way of putting the clamp on, so that would be an extra bonus. And other than that, it's a lovely just to put her away. So now we need to go and have a look at what this bike does on my more favorite roads. So one of my favorite parts to drive in Ireland is this little road from Hollywood up to Sally's Gap. And it's lovely, windy, up and down hills, a bit of twisties, a bit of turns, and it is my kind of like a test track for every bike that I ever owned, just to go through these motions. It was a bit a disappointment that it was so wet, because I think I would have pushed the bike a little bit harder through the turns. But since it was like the first time in the season that I was driving this road again, I was like keeping my eyes out for any fresh potholes or any new surprises that might have been added to this particular route. Nevertheless, I enjoyed this ride, and even though it was a bit wet and it was a bit damp, right up to the top of Sally's Gap was a really mystic scene of the clouds rolling in through the mountains. The bike handled very well, and I noticed that as soon as you're like over 60 kilometers per hour, you can leave this bike into 6th gear and it will putter along nicely. Once you need a little bit more get up and go, well, kick it back like 2 gears and it really comes alive. But otherwise, I found it is just as good on the motorway as it is on these back roads. So I'm gonna let you now enjoy the scenery a little bit despite of the rain. I will put some music on the background just to make things a little bit more enjoyable, and it will stop me from waffling, so that's always a plus.
Don't belong here, staring at the people they talk about, whispering words to spite my passion. I'll move on, maybe I'll live in chance. And it don't make sense why you're just like the rest. It's easy to see I'm the one you hurt is. All aspire for life has a changing hours of new pass before my eyes. And I wanna be here for the rest of my life. I wanna be here.
Right, so I guess we're coming to the end of the video, to the point where I decided I had enough of this wonderful, sunny St. Patrick's Day, and I apologize for the quality of the video, heavily distorted by those lovely raindrops. And from my view, when I finally reached the turn point, I thought this was like quite a nice view. So I hope it does come across, and I hope you enjoyed the video. And I'm certainly looking forward of doing more on the Interceptor 650, sharing my findings, my opinions, which do not need to be necessarily confused with actual facts, but, you know, maybe as some talking point. Just keeping it real. Anyways, thanks for watching, thanks for listening, and until next time, at Frankie's World, bye bye.